In the year of 2020, communities around the world were forced to go into a lockdown frame of lifestyle after the novel COVID-19 virus spread. Peaking in the months of March and April and staying mostly concurrent for the rest of the year, most demographics needed to accustom to a new form of life, staying inside and refusing to going to any public events, limiting their social gatherings. Hundreds of thousands of extroverted voices were heard across the country, nay the world, wondering whether or not there was going to be a normal ever again. So in other words, regular life for gamers. Video games and gaming in general is just one of my life pillars of media consumption. Going to the movie theater was one of the first things to go for me and my girlfriend, and it was mostly missed. Mostly. And there was very little for me and the girlfriend or other friends to do in the year of 2020, which in turn opened a lot more time for me to either create content for the YouTube and streaming channels or game to my heart's content, like I've never gamed before. And in a stunning twist of questionably used time, I played more games this past year than I've done in the past 5 years combined. Hey guys, Dark Spider David here, and for the first time in my tenure as a YouTuber, here's not my top 5, but my top 10 games of 2020. Now, the only thing unchanged this year from past occasions that I've done a Game of the Year discussion is the usual disclaimer that this is my list, and even though time and money have allotted for more games to be played, I didn't get to every single title out there, whether it was because of time, or money management, or sheer lack of interest. So spoilers, no, Animal Crossing New Horizons is not going to be on this list. I understand if you want to turn it off, it's okay, I don't blame you, go ahead. But if you haven't, don't forget to hit subscribe, turn on notifications for more content coming up in the very near future, and let's get started. Starting off at number 10. Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. Let me start off with explaining how inevitable it was that a kind of sort of free-to-play battle royale game was eventually going to find its way to break the bottom spot. After all, the events of 2020 were ripe for dropping free-to-play content, as it was going to have more eyes and hands on it, much easier than other titles, especially during periods of lockdowns. So why did I choose Fall Guys? Not only was it a smart move to establish a player base for this by making it a free PlayStation Plus game during its month of release, but it had a simple pick up and play style that doesn't require keeping track of loadouts or statistics or figuring out whether or not there's enough space on your console's hard drive because you needed to install the latest patch. It's an obstacle course game, taking inspiration from those wacky Japanese game shows with a battle royale structure that hooked me with that one more game feeling better than any other free-to-play game did this past year, and seems to have a sound backing by publisher Devolver Digital in the way of fixing issues such as the grabbing that I've complained about time and time again, and throwing in planar incentive like those cute Doom Eternal costumes that are coming up pretty soon. Sadly, the only thing you can't fix is player intelligence, because then this would be a much more refined and equally balanced game, but that's part of the fun, right? Number 9. Dreams. Bet some of you forgot about this one. Admittedly, PlayStation didn't exactly cover this one very well, and it's geared towards a very niche creative demographic that wasn't going to make it gang-busting money. However, me being a content creator, Mario Maker 2 was naturally my Game of the Year last year, so when I knew a similar title was being dropped on the PlayStation 4 from the makers of Little Big Planet, I had to scope it out. At $40, it was a game that kept giving, providing intuitive controls for both creating and playing, a comfy aesthetic, and a campaign that not only showcased the power of the creations engine inside of Dreams, but also showed the storytelling talent a game like this can put light on. And if not, then at least giving us some really random shit to love and Godcat was an extra bonus, because trust me, there's some really random stuff that people have created in the game, whether it be homages to some of their favorite titles or just random funny bits to react to. It's a giant mixed bag that just, again, has a well of content to explore, and mixing this with a great response from the streaming community, and it results in an ever-growing Jack-in-the-Box type of game that I would love to revisit. Also, stream plug incoming. I'm likely to be streaming Dreams and many of the titles you'll find on this list in the future, so make sure to check out the Twitch and Facebook gaming channels. Links are going to be in the description below. I stream about 3 or 4 times a week, so check them out, and hopefully I will see you there soon. Number 8. Cyberpunk 2077. part of me does feel guilty for putting the controversial CD Projekt Red title in this spot, let alone the list period, because my experience was technically much more sound than others, having played this on an Xbox Series X. With that said, it was far from a perfect venture after encountering visual bugs and audio hiccups that hindered one of the biggest feats CDPR set out to do, which is to instill immersion. More on that in a video essay coming very soon. This was my biggest problem with the game, and why it wasn't that much higher on the list. Time and time again, I would find a lot of pieces of the overall package, whether it be on the visual side of things or more importantly audio cues that are supposed to be triggered, particularly during the ending, that's supposed to give me a sense of weight for the situation at hand, and it was completely missing. However, Night City is a character unto herself, and experiencing over 75 hours in it while losing time with side quest after side quest is eventually the core as to why I love RPGs, and Cyberpunk was able to dig its mantis blades into me with an addictive progression system, tight gun combat, and a cast of remarkable characters, some of which can even rival the breathtaking Johnny Silverhand.
You're breathtaking!
Perhaps that next-gen update, now slated for the back half of 2021, is what's going to be needed to not only breathe new life into this game for the public eye, but also to get that water cooler conversation me and my friend were having over this game. And maybe when that update drops is when I will be warranted enough to go through this game a second time, especially if it means that I'll end up with a much more happier ending than what I received, because I feel like I screwed up, and a different life path with a different ending could possibly give this an experience that makes this one of the more impressive titles of last year. Number 7. Astros Playroom. I'm aware that this is a game that not everyone's going to come across because it's so difficult to find, as in a whole console type of difficult to find. All kidding aside, Astros Playroom was merely meant to be a quick 4-hour demo packed in with the PS5 to showcase why the DualSense is an impressive and yet really expensive piece of next-gen tech. Not only did it blow my expectations out of the simulated water with its integration of the DualSense controller, but this was also a very polished and genuinely fun platformer that rides on the whimsical and charming personality of Astro and his cute little companions, as well as being a nostalgic covered love letter to the legacy of PlayStation, demonstrating how far they've come as a company while never being afraid to poke at their past failures. Trust me, there's some stuff in here, from really deep emotional cuts that brought up childhood memories to some buried and forgotten treasures that even I didn't recognize. I know it's near impossible to get a PlayStation 5 right now, but when the time comes when you can simply walk into a store and pick one up, take comfort in knowing that one of the best gaming experiences of 2020 is already coming with you at no additional cost. Number 6. Spider-Man Miles Morales. The spider part of my username is very much a nod to my favorite Marvel character, so you can bet I was feeling all kinds of bias when Insomniac's Spider-Man dropped in 2018. It was my game of the year. Yeah, there's no fronting about it. It was my game of the year that year, and though it didn't meet the heights that game established, Miles Morales' standalone piece does just that. It stands on its own, which was one of the most important expectations I had out of this newest installment of the franchise. Miles is Spider-Man, but he's his own Spider-Man, and the game needed to follow suit, no pun intended. I already have a separate review here on the channel called My Take on Spider-Man Miles Morales, so you can go and check that video out if you guys want much more fleshed out details. However, to summarize, Miles Morales is able to take the best parts of the 2018 game, like the combat and the swinging, and tweak it to be tailored to Miles' style and perspective. Slap on a polished next-gen coat of paint to show what the ray tracing on the PlayStation 5 can do, and you have what's likely going to be my next Platinum Trophy. Number 5. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Is it too late to warn you that there were going to be a modest amount of remakes on this list? It was one of the more rampant gaming trends of 2020, and not necessarily just because of the COVID pandemic limited the production of much heavier set, brand new IP related titles, but also we were in the midst of a generational transition between consoles. Newer hardware was going to be introduced, so some of that effort and money were being put into the much more painstaking properties are going to be released years into the newest generation. So for now, we had all of these remakes to kind of go through. However, one of the remakes done right was the subliminal execution of the skating in Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remake. This is how you do a remake on a more passionate level. Take the polygonal elements of the original and bring it into the current era while using today's tech to make the skating feel much more intuitive and, above all, fun. And much like real skating, practicing perseveres, and here it's often rewarded with the scores, goals, and achievements you remember from the 90s. So checking off that list of goals to progress to the next stage, and hearing the sound effects and looking at the visual cues and just getting the feel of accomplishment while nailing that perfect trick is all at the heart of it still here. Completionists will also find a light upgrade and XP system to acquire new wheels, decks, outfits, and even skate park assets for when they wanna get their Mario Maker dreams on. See what I did there, and share different customized skate parks online. But to me, it was the mere concept of a next-gen version of one of my childhood memories, skating in the warehouse to Goldfinger Superman, that nailed this down as one of my top 5s of the year. Number 4. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Speaking of remakes done right, inevitably, Square Enix's much rumored and eventually revealed but also very talked about remake of one of the most beloved video games of all time saw the light of Mako in 2020, and though my gripe with how bloated it came off at times due to the constraints of taking what is originally the opening hours of the original game and expanding it to a 40-hour campaign still remain, it's the breathtaking visuals, compelling characters, the resounding score I can never get tired of listening to, and the perfectly balanced gameplay crossing somewhere between real-time adventure hack and slash and turn-based strategy that all marries effortlessly. You can't really see it here because I'm behind the mic, but chef's kiss. The ending took longer hours to ponder on than expected because I wasn't certain how I felt about it. However, having never played the original, this is a journey I am fully on board to continue. Only thing now is to wait a little longer. Number 3. Doom Eternal. I have the body mass index of a teenager. You know that any game that makes me feel not like that at all, and more so the demon-slaying living incarnate of badassery, is going to end up pretty high on my list, especially when it's the sequel to the game that revitalized both the kinetically juiced, metal-octane version of the first-person genre and the iconic Doom franchise, all the way down from the pits of hell. Though there are some aesthetic choices to grow into, such as the verticality, the jumping, the traversal, and the new asymmetric multiplayer, and some would argue that the ending didn't fully land both on the gameplay and cinematic perspective, it's the goddamn rip and tear gameplay, the feeling that you're not trapped with the demons, but that the demons are trapped with you. And if they don't know it by the size of your gun, they'll know it by the shrieking notes of Mick Gordon's blood-pumping soundtrack. Doom Eternal was one of the highlights of not only my streams this year, but gaming, period. Ancient Gods, I'm coming for you next. Number 2. Hades. 2020 was a living hell, so it makes an awful lot of sense that video games were going to show us a much more fun and much more desired interpretation of the Lake of Fire. However, instead of the face-melting frenetic energy that Doom Eternal thrust us into, Hades surprised me and floored my fear of the roguelike genre. See, I wasn't certain this kind of game was for me, dying over and over on purpose. I kind of went through that already with Doom. However, Hades marries the concept of a roguelike with the most perfect premise. Hades' own son, Zagreus, wanting to escape hell, dying repeatedly over and over, and every other character being fully aware that this is happening. It's a match made in, well, hell. And hearing the good word of mouth that this game was receiving made me take the gamble and blind buy it. And from day one, I was very, very, very ecstatic that I did. I was hooked. It may not have had the biggest budget that other titles on this list did, but it's the attention to detail in the design for both the characters and the environments, the procedurally changing environments, and the spectacular voice work and score composition that made Hades just technical porn on every level. I'm serious. From every sensory detail, I loved seeing this game, hearing this game, witnessing this game. And now I have a confession, I might love roguelikes now. Not only was I able to gently squeeze myself into an addictive loop of upgrading Zagreus, choosing which preferred pathways I wanted to take, catering to the right gods for the right perks, selecting the most advantageous boons, and most importantly, learning from my past mistakes to vanquish even the tougher enemies on the road ahead, regardless of which run I was on. It's a cliche saying in the industry, but it's never been truer this year. I couldn't put this one down.
Alright, one more time.
Before we go to the top spot, let me pull a watch mojo out of my ass and do some quick honorable mentions. Trials of Mana Remake had a lot of fun with this JRPG and it feels right at home on the Switch, check it out. Mafia Definitive Edition, not as open as I would have wanted it as an open world game, but definitely the right call to remake and recast this really gripping and harrowing story into what it was. Rocket Arena, an overlooked fun combination of, yes, I'm gonna say it, Fortnite, but more importantly and better quality, Smash Brothers using nothing but rockets. Very, very fun. Don't overlook it. It's free on Game Pass with EA Play, so I'll be sure to try it out at least once. And lastly, Bugsnax. Don't be quick to call this the quote knack of PS5. There's actually some hidden messages about life and its tribulations buried somewhere in what seems to be a much more gentler, explorative game. And finally, number 1. Of course you know it.
The Last of Us Part 2.
Again, big congrats to
Ghost of Tsushima, you son of a bitch. I've already made a separate, nearly 30-minute video discussing why Ghost of Tsushima is my game of the year, so you can go and check that out for much more evocative details, thorough explanations, the whole wazoo. But in short, I fulfilled my quest to platinum this game like I said I was going to not too long ago. I gave the multiplayer component Legends mode a chance and genuinely enjoyed it. But most of all, despite having played a number of games since, from critical darlings like Hades to blockbuster titles like Cyberpunk 2077, hell, I even got not one, but 2 next-gen consoles in that time. My gaming schedule had advanced in ways I couldn't even fathom. Despite all that, nothing was able to shake or temper the memory of calling upon Kage to help me cross the Tsushima beach, touching the flowers by the shore, and taking in what everyone at Sucker Punch were able to passionately and authentically craft, making this one of the shortest 50-hour experiences I've ever had as a gamer. And if the recent renovations to the real island of Tsushima, which was sadly decimated by some recent typhoons, are any indication, then I'm not the only one who feels this way either. Guys, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If you guys liked it, hit the like button. If not, hit the dislike button. Comment, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications if this is your first time here. And also make sure to check out the Patreon page, which is live now, so you guys can also become a supporter of the Dark Spider-Verse like these folks did. Also, don't forget about the Twitch and Facebook gaming channels. Links are also going to be in the description. I stream about 3 to 4 times a week. And as always, stay humble. I'll see you on the next one.